Arguably, one of the most rewarding aspects of teaching anything is that every time you teach something, you also get to learn at the same time. You get to see how people interpret the ideas, how they apply them, but also you get to see the nuances in the ideas themselves and get a greater sense of clarity and specificity about the whole concept that you're trying to convey to the world in the first place. Let me give you a real world example that happened to me just recently, in fact, yesterday. Um, Chapter 4 of the Framemaking sale is all about the fact that your customers are overloaded with information. And one of the things we found in the research is that it really means you have to think about an information strategy, because if customers are already overwhelmed with too much information and you provide them even more, it just actually exacerbates the problem and undermines their self-confidence rather than building it. And so what we found in that work that many of you will know, it's profiled in an article called Sense Making for Sales in HBR in 2021, and again also in the Framemaking sale, is this idea that if you approach customers with a giving posture, you tend to actually make things worse. You give them even more to think about, more to worry about. But the one that I really want to focus on is what we call the expert posture. And this expert posture was, and it's really surprising, is the whole idea is if you approach customers with this idea of, rather than giving them even more information to consider, you give them a course of action. I've been doing this for 30 years, and here's what I think you should do. Or I've been doing this for a long time, and here's what I would recommend. The thing about this expert posture that is so interesting is that it actually doesn't build customer self-confidence. It actually undermines it. And so one of the things we ultimately talk about, of course, is that the third way is this idea of sense making, which is just an example of frame making, approaching customers with this approach of there's a lot of information out there. Let me just see if I can help you make sense of it. Okay, so there's the underlying idea, and that's the concept we were teaching and working with yesterday with a group of sales leaders and sales professionals. The thing that got really interesting was, as we were talking about this expert posture, this I've been doing this for 30 years and here's what I would recommend, or I've been doing this for a long time, here's what I think you should do. Um, in conveying this idea that ironically or surprisingly, that sort of posture undermines customer self-confidence, because in many ways it's actually designed to boost customers' confidence in you rather than boost customers' confidence themselves, which, as we know, in frame making is the single biggest driver of a high quality deal. What I found really interesting, and including myself, is we were, as a collective group and learning this concept and applying it, we were all over indexing on the first part of this sort of phrase, which is, I've been doing this for a long time. And the ironic part is I had just told the group in about 3 other places in the keynote and the workshops we were doing that I had been doing what I had been doing for a long time. And they were kind of holding me accountable for, like, didn't you just say we shouldn't say that? And then they would use examples, saying, I've been doing this for a long time and what I think, and then they'd stop and say, oh no, I'm not supposed to say that. And it became sort of this rote exercise of, like, those are bad words and you should never tell anyone how long you've been doing this. And ultimately it started to ring sort of hollow to me. It's like, I don't think that's the point, but I'm having a hard time articulating why it's the point. And it was the flight home and this morning and, like, I think I dreamt about it. I don't know. But the thing that occurred to me is it's not how long you've been doing this and whether you tell somebody you've been doing it for a long time or not that matters. It's what you say next and how you articulate what you say next that matters. The problem isn't, I've been doing this for 30 years. It's rather, I've been doing this for 30 years and here's what I would recommend. It's the provision of your perspective, the provision of your personal opinion, or no matter how much basis in experience and school of hard knocks it might be, it's very different than saying, here's 2 versions. I've been doing this for 30 years, here's what I would recommend, versus I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've seen a lot of different ways this can go right or wrong. And one of the things I've learned along the way that's really interesting to me is that a number of companies have really seen it go south like this, which has kind of surprised me. Notice what I've just done is, whether I've done it 30 years, 20 years, or 30 months, or 30 hours, doesn't matter. What I'm doing here in one version versus another is, one is I'm telling you what I think you should do. And the other version, I'm sharing with you my experience of what others have done. And this goes back to this idea we talked about before, which is this idea of being an expert versus being a connector. And the fact that you have long-term experience of being a connector, which enriches your connector repertoire, gives you more exposure to other people with other perspectives. I think that actually can be very, very powerful and might be something you want to lean into, but it's how you articulate the value of that experience. The value of the experience is not that it made you smarter, therefore you can convey your idea. The value is that all that experience gave you exposure to the learning of others, and so that you are ultimately then a connector. As we like to say, your ultimate value isn't your expertise. Your ultimate value is your access. It's your access to other perspectives, very similar to the customer. What your customer wants to know is not what you think. They want to know what other companies like them are doing. What have other people like me, where have they gone off the rails? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Where are they seeing returns? Not what do you think, but what have you seen that other people have done? And the fact that you may have done that for many, many years, I think that actually is a good thing, not a bad thing. It's not something to run away from, but run toward. But let's make sure that when we tell people how long we've been doing this, it's always at the service of conveying the value of your ability to bring back to them the thing they want more than anything else, which is deep level expertise or perspectives, not of you, from you, but from other people's real world experience. And I think hopefully that clears up this idea. And if nothing else, this is sort of just a love note to the company I was with yesterday, if nothing else, which is, you know, there's nothing wrong with saying you've been doing this for a while, but let's think about why it matters that you've been doing it for a while, which is you've been doing this for a while because it helps you understand and learn. You're a co-learner, and you've been on this learning journey for a long time. And one of the things you've been surprised to learn and see from other companies, and here's what you've seen that they've learned and that they've shared or, taught you. And that's a posture of humility, it's a posture of learning, and it's a posture of sharing, and it's a posture of providing your customers with access as opposed to your opinion. And I think that distinction really matters. Cheers, everybody.